she promised forever in whispered late-night conversations, in the way her fingers would trace patterns on your arm like she was memorizing you. You believed her not because you were foolish, but because your love wasn't built on games or conditions. It was solid, something you thought could weather any storm. But for her, loyalty wasn't an unbreakable vow, it was a temporary state, a placeholder until something brighter, louder, more intoxicating came along. The day it happened, it wasn't dramatic. No screaming, no grand betrayal. Just a slow fade, a quiet withdrawal, until one day you realized she was already gone. The hardest part wasn't the loss itself. It was the whiplash of realizing that what you thought was real had always been fragile in her hands. You replay the moments, the way she swore you were different, the way she clung to you like she feared letting go, but words are just air. Actions are what matter, and hers told the truth long before she did. She didn't leave because you weren't enough. She left because you were too steady, too real, too unwavering for someone who thrived on the rush of newness. Her loyalty wasn't a choice. It was a reflex tied to whatever emotion burned hottest in the moment. And when that fire dimmed, so did her commitment. You weren't the exception. You were just another lesson, one she may never even understand. The irony? The man she left you for won't love her the way you did? But by the time she realizes it, you'll already be gone, not out of spite, but because you finally learned your own worth. She didn't leave you for someone better, she left for the feeling of better. That's the cruel trick of addiction. And make no mistake, she was addicted. Not to you, not to love, but to the rush of something new. The way her pulse would quicken when a stranger's gaze lingered too long. The thrill of a flirty message lighting up her phone, those were her drugs. And like any addict, she chased the high, even if it meant burning down something real to feel it. You were steady, and steadiness doesn't spark adrenaline. It doesn't keep her guessing, doesn't feed the hunger for chaos that so many mistake for passion. So when the routine set in, when your love became familiar instead of intoxicating, she convinced herself she was missing out. She called it growing apart or needing space, but the truth was simpler. She was bored. Not because you were boring, but because she couldn't tell the difference between love and the dizzying whirlwind of infatuation. The worst part, she do it again. The new guy, the fresh excitement, it'll fade too. And when it does, she either run once more or wake up to the hollow truth. She traded depth for distraction. But by then you'll be gone, not waiting in the wings, not hoping she'd change, but miles ahead, building a life where love isn't a roller coaster but solid ground. Let her keep chasing highs, You've already found something rarer, peace. The cruelest joke the universe plays on good men is this: the more you give, the easier you are to leave. Your consistency became predictable. Your devotion turned into something she could take for granted. And when love stops feeling like a mystery to solve, women like her lose interest, not because you failed, but because you didn't play the game. She didn't want stability. She wanted suspense. The guy who keeps her guessing, who blows hot and cold, who makes her work for scraps of attention, that's who she mistakes for real love. Because dysfunction feels like passion when you don't know the difference. Meanwhile, your loyalty became a comfort. And comfort to an adrenaline junkie is just another word for boredom. Here's what she never admit. Leaving you wasn't about upgrading. It was about avoiding the mirror you held up, one that showed her how shallow her definition of love really was. You demanded nothing, so she valued nothing. You loved without conditions, so she felt no need to earn it. And when someone offered her the cheap thrill of uncertainty, she called it chemistry and walked away without a second glance. But this is where you win, because the man who comes after you, he won't love her like you did. He'll keep her on edge, make her doubt, make her ache, and one day, too late, she realized what she threw away. Not the highs, but the foundation, not fireworks, but home. By then, you'll be long gone, not bitter, just wiser. And that's the sweetest revenge of all. The moment you stop chasing her ghost is the moment you reclaim your power. This isn't about moving on. It's about evolving into someone who no longer recognizes the man who begged for scraps of her attention. That version of you is dying. And what's emerging from the ashes is something far more dangerous, a man who understands. His worth isn't tied to a woman's fickle emotions. She wanted you broken, hoping you'd come crawling back, giving her the ego boost of knowing she still had power over you. But you're doing the one thing she never expected. You're healing, not for her, not for the next woman, but for yourself. Every morning you wake up and choose yourself. Every time you resist the urge to check her social media, every night you invest in your purpose instead of drowning in memories. These are silent victories she never see coming, the paradox. The less you care about her regret, the more it will haunt her. While she's chasing temporary validation from men who will never commit, you're building a life so solid that when she inevitably looks back, when the thrill fades and she's left with the hollow reality of her choices, she finds nothing but your shadow in the distance. And that shadow will be taller, stronger, and more unshakable than the man she remembers. This chapter isn't about her. It's about the quiet revolution happening within you, one where love is no longer a battlefield, but a choice you make from strength, not desperation. The man walking away isn't defeated. He's the one who finally realized he was the prize all along. One day, when the dust settles, she tell herself a story about why it had to end. She claim you grew apart or blame circumstances beyond control, anything to avoid the uncomfortable. Truth, she abandoned something real for a fantasy, but you'll know the real story. Not as bitterness, but as quiet wisdom etched into your bones. This isn't about who was right or wrong anymore. It's about the undeniable transformation that occurs when a man stops defining himself by who loves him and starts building himself through what he's willing to walk away from. The woman who left will become a footnote in your history, not because she didn't matter, but because what you became after her matters more. Watch closely as life unfolds. She cycle through the same patterns, mistaking intensity for intimacy, while you steady her. Sharper will recognize real connection when it finds you. Not the heart-racing chaos she craved, but the deep, quiet knowing of two people who choose each other daily, the final twist. She gave you the greatest gift, the realization that your value doesn't fluctuate with someone else's ability to see it. You're not waiting for her to understand what she lost. You're too busy becoming the man who never has to wonder if he's enough again. That's how this ends, not with her regret, but with your unshakable certainty. And that certainty becomes the foundation for everything that comes next.